All right. Let's pause this. I think I have to turn this on now. Interesting. Hope this thing didn't die. Oh, there we go. Oh, it was on the whole time. Oh, hang on, dude. I just had some Janet Jackson come on right here. But I can't hear anything. Yeah, I know my battery's high. Jeez. Welcome, fam. Welcome. It's going to be a banger today. We got a lot to show you. Just wait. Just wait. We also, if you're just joining, it is going to get pretty good because I actually took the liberty, because again, I'm a gentleman, of reaching out to, I haven't even started promoting the stream yet too, but I actually ended up reaching out to both Dark and, oh, there we go. Dark and Mark. So we had reached out to Dark from EIS, and I reached out to Mark from NTS just to apply some due diligence. And I'm going to tell you this honestly. I'm gonna tell you, and again, I got to start promoting the stream here in a bit, so we'll start in a minute. And I want to try and segue, as obviously, you know, the topic is going to be about the #1 KvK today. There is a bit to talk about. I will tell you, just to give you a little teaser here, the responses. You guys have to let me know if the music is a little bit too loud, or if you can hear it okay. I'm trying a different one out. I'm going to be trying a couple different ones out here today, because the last one didn't really work too well. So I'm hoping this one will work okay. But as I stated, the interesting part here is that I had reached out to both, and the interesting part is that I got two completely different answers, and I'm gonna go over this as well on essentially like what was said broadly from both. So yeah, it again, it is a little wild. I'm gonna be honest, because I didn't expect this to be a thing, because I just figured, okay, you know, I'll reach out, they'll give me the same answer, right? Because this is obviously a public thing. There's no way that they're gonna hit me with, you know, anything different than basically what has been made public. And then all of a sudden, it's like the plot thickens, man. That's what I'll say. The plot thickens. And you wouldn't think it would thicken. You would just think, okay, it is what it is. You know, it's not something that this is going to be a big story, right, at all. Like, it's just not, I don't know. It's not something that I'm thinking, okay, right? Like, I think it would be okay to talk about, but I'm not thinking anything more beyond that. And so the fact that you get two completely different answers from basically the two main parties that are involved is absolutely bananas to me. So yeah, like I said, there's a lot we're going to talk about today. As always, we're going to get some promo rounds in per usual. And again, you guys have to let me know if the music is a little bit too loud or not. Again, we are trying to lower it a bit. But we're going to, again, try and cover both sides of this, as it is important to do so, and at least for me. And so, you know, we're going to talk, obviously, we're going to focus on the #1 KvK today. I hope you guys are enjoying a little bit of an earlier stream, at least for my Monday. So you guys got me for about 2.5 hours right now. We might stream again later, but I wanted to try and kind of do a midday stream just to see, you know, what kind of traction we got. So, like I said, right, today's topic is going to mainly be on the #1 KvK group. We're going to talk about basically the drama surrounding, you know, what has been made public, you know, whether or not that's true. We're going to talk about what that story is. me reaching out to Dark from EIS, reaching out to Mark from NTS. I will vaguely, I will kind of give you the Cliff Note versions of their responses. But that really, for me, I think, and then obviously we'll do a little bit more of a detailed breakdown on the number one KvK as well when we kind of look at Zone 2, Zone 3 matchups. Why is my music not playing after I paired it? Interesting. Now this thing's dead all of a sudden. Oh, there we go. Oh yeah, I hear you saying welcome. Oh, there we go. Hang on, let me see if it's still. No, I don't have anything connected. Shocker. What a shocker. What up, fam? What up? Welcome, welcome. Like I said, we will be starting in a moment. We're just getting some promos out the way, per usual. And yeah, it's gonna be a fun one. It's gonna be a fun one today. Yeah, I did it. I did it just for you guys, because I'm a gentleman. Really, I'm not. You know, I'm a lover, not a fighter. So yeah, should be good. But yeah, so like I said, we're gonna let people load in, right? Let everyone, as many people that obviously have an opportunity to join, feel free. And again, we had a nice outline of topics as we're gonna cover the number one KvK drama that's going on. We'll also do a little bit more of an in-depth breakdown, like I was saying as well, on the Zone 2s and the Zone 3s. And yeah, just kind of play it out, right? So it should be good. Like I said, we're also going to be giving you kind of cliff note responses from me reaching out to Dark from EIS and Mark from NTS. Yeah, it's it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. I think people will be pretty shocked on what we touch on. So just because I was, it really wasn't something I was like I was saying earlier, it wasn't something I was expecting to hear. Let's do. Okay, here we go. Bam. It should be good. As always, man, if you guys are enjoying, if you can't wait for some quality English tea to drop, make sure you throw us down. Because it helps out a lot. Thanks. All right, let's go ahead and okay, let's just do a few more of these, and then we can get going. Where we at? We're about 8 or 9 minutes in. Awesome as we ramp up. Welcome, welcome. Davos, what's up, man? No surprise there. EIS has tried to Diplo-WIN against their current allies in the past. Even SSG, BDO, WB have all been on the receiving end. BB, what's up, baby? Both our fives are called Tark. No. Just one. And then Mark. Oh, it's probably because I'm using a different first letter, right? So it's Dark from EIS and Mark from NTS. It's just same last three letters. Shockingly, now that I think about it, yeah, I could see how that might have been slightly confusing. That's right. Chris, what's up, man? How is everyone? Doing well, man. Doing well for a Monday. It's always nice to start off, just a little hotness, on a Monday. Machine, what's up, man? Here we go. That's right, boo boo. Nah, man, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun, good stuff. And like I said, we'll be sure to cover both sides as well, right? It's never just gonna be looking at it from one angle, right? We'll try and approach from both sides and speak to it objectively. But again, I can at least inform people, right, of what I was told as from both parties, and then we can talk about it, and people can make their minds up, for how they see fit. And then we'll show you some data too as well, right? We'll show you some stats and some supplementary information and deets. Ling Ling, what up in the bang bang? What's up, man? A lover. Focus, what's up, man? Time for the drama. Listen, if there was never any decent tea, Troll, what's up, man? That's right, it's nasty drama. It's not regular drama. It's now. I see what you did there. Touche. Oh my gosh, that's too funny. No, should be good. Like I said, we're just getting some promos out here, and then we will start up again. We got a good show for you guys today, right? So we're, like I said, we got a couple things we'll start off with, and then we're going to do a deep kind of detailed breakdown on the number 1 KvK, right? We'll look at some of the Zone 2 matchups. We'll look at the Zone 3 matchup. Look at how that might play out throughout. But again, we'll get to some of the butter and biscuits, if you will, in the beginning, which should be good. We actually got a couple like good stuff, good vids coming out this week. Really good topics. I'm actually pretty excited for. Yeah. But again, man, be sure to tell your wife, tell your kids, your cousins twice removed, next door neighbor's dog. Just, you know, holler at some humans, as we would say. Whoa. Oopsie. Slight double post there. 10Z, what up, baby? Echo finally getting a fair match, and now it's EIS Diplo winning. Over the last 50 seasons, Echo Diplo-WIN never. No one ever talked about it. Ooh, what's going on? Did I just double that up too there? That was weird. Oh my gosh, how far or not far down am I? Oh, there we go. Okay, whew, that was wild right there, man. She's not sure what's up, man. Other than top KvK, which KvKs are to watch out for this time? Again, we will be doing so. I might actually be streaming again tonight, but either tonight or Friday. I'm going to try and see if I might be able to get away doing it tonight because the kiddos might be hanging out with their mom tonight. So if so, whether we do it tonight or tomorrow, we're going to do a kind of a big KvK predictions stream, and that is going to be the one where we will go through kind of the starting at the top and work our way down for the KvK groups. We'll look at how the Zone 2s and Zone 3s will play out, and we'll kind of give our predictions for each, along with how the final zone or entire KvK could play out as well. So that'll be a little bit more of a detailed breakdown there when we do that one. But again, for today, we're going to focus on the number 1 KvK group. We're going to talk about EIS, NTS. Again, I had reached out for those of you just joining us now. As always, the only entry fee we kindly ask of you to provide to us is just a quick thank you, because it helps out a lot. But again, we're going to give you an overview on the situation, at least on what's being put out there. Let's be clear. And I took the liberty of reaching out to Dark and from EIS, and I reached out to Mark from NTS. And it's wild how close the names are, along with how close the acronyms are. I can understand how that might be confusing. But again, I reached out to both parties. I asked them, like, hey, what happened? Is this true? Is it not true? Right. And I will simply tell you that, again, as a little teaser here before we start, and I said this a little earlier, is that I basically ended up hearing 2 different answers completely. Now, there are some screenshots we're going to show too as well. I know there's a number of things that have been floating around. And so, again, we'll talk about both sides of it, right? Like, is it true? Is it not true? What did we hear from EIS? What did we hear from NTS? What is being thrown out there? And then we'll do a breakdown, right? Then we'll do an objective look at the number 1 KvK, and we'll talk about how the Zone 2, how the Zone 3s might play out, maybe how Final Zone might play out, obviously, if we get that far. And again, I think it's important to try and cover things from both sides, and reaching out to the parties involved so we can hear from them directly. So that way we at least get a little bit more context, right? That can be provided. I think that's really important. And then, like I said, we got some nice little outline notes here that we're going to be covering as well. So it should be, let's just be honest, a grand old time. So we're about 15 minutes in. We're going to start here in a minute. So if you are just joining us, I think that's, about enough time so far to prep before we do start. I think we've given everyone a decent amount of time to load in. So yeah, we will start here shortly. And there we go. Let's grab this real quick so we have our outline prepped. This way we get to stay on topic. Okay. Awesome. We have a lovely outline. It's always nice, just so, we can stay somewhat on topic. Mugiwara, what's up, man? Dude, I'm going to be honest. Most recent episode of One Piece was cook-a-lookin'. I'm just going to say that right now. Oh, my gosh. I cannot wait for the next episode, man. It is going to be... I mean, last episode was a banger, but, oh, man, I can't wait for the next episode. I'm so giddy right now, man. Oh, it's just getting so good. Too loose for the goose. What up, baby? I know. Right, Lunacy, what's up, man? Nope, you were under arrest. What? What is happening, man? Glossary, what's up, man? First episode to not have a backstory reminder. Wait, oh, yeah. Dude, no, you're right on that. Because, yeah, they've been doing that the past number. At least it feels like this arc has been a lot more of that recently. Absolutely. Bam! What's up, man? Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Oh, hang on. I think we were here, right? 32. I know, right? Ping, what's up, man? They still RSS healed a bunch against us. Looks like the stats from last season and stop yapping stuff. That ain't true. Tenzi says Dark never wanted 4v2. Y'all effed in your heads. KT, what's up, man? Welcome, welcome. Godmo, what's up, man? Hey, boss, what's up with this title? You'll be finding out shortly. You will be finding out shortly. Again, we got our outline set up. We got a bunch of things that we're going to touch on and talk about. So it should be good. It should be good. And again, try and give some. Oh, wasn't I trying to figure this out? For real. Necrocism, what's up, man? Absolutely, I appreciate you prepping some new, what is it, Mrs. Butter? Isn't that a brand of popcorn? I can't recall. All right, I think we've waited long enough. I thought I had these jams going, man. I'm trying to get this started. There we go. Okay, cool. It says connected, which is great, but will it actually let me play some music? Maybe I have to restart the whole thing. Finally! Dude, finally I get some jams going in here. All right, there we go. Okay. I feel a lot better now that the jams are going already. Okay. So we're about 19 minutes in. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. And what I'm going to start with first off here, Eric says BN roadcasting when. Again, I'm going to try and do this. Like I said, I still got to reach out to Guns about this. I keep forgetting. But we are absolutely going to be trying to do that maybe as early as the qualifiers. Whether I just do some on my own. But keep in mind, I have to be available, right, to do it live streamed. Or we can do the recording, right, and then post that afterwards. So we will see how that one works. Yeah. Okay. But again, so the first part we're going to touch on right now that I want to kind of lay the groundwork for, which is, right, what is the situation currently and where do we stand in the #1 KvK? So let me first and foremost show you guys just kind of a quick view on where we are right now as it pertains to the #1 KvK, right? So kind of giving you an overview here. We have, again, if you don't know yet, here it is, right? So it's hopefully not a spoiler to anyone, right? We have EIS, WBA Rage, and they're going up against NTS, Echo, and 25IL, right? Now, this data is pretty fresh, right? I ended up pulling the majority of this on the 5th, and then the last couple KvK groups that I showed in the video, we did that on the 6th, right? So 2 and 3 days ago, respectively. The numbers here you could see, right? We have power, which is basically just taking power for the kingdoms minus any farm alliances. Now, if there were some bigger players in the farm alliances, we kind of took an average power and just kind of added that onto the total. But if the farm alliance was majority just farm accounts, right, around 15 mil below, give or take, then we didn't count that. Merits similarly, right, so we would kind of prorate any merits that might have been accumulated based on the merit for that alliance, right, if they might have had a couple people in the farm, or again, not count at all if they didn't. And then M over P, right, is basically just PvP activity, right, it's merits dividing into power. And then at the 10, 15, 20, 25, right, this is total players that achieved at least these merits last season. And then ADPs are power, right? So it's 80, 100, 150 million, and then how many players were at that power or above, right, at the time of the pool. And then you could see here, right, blue is basically that group's totals. We've bolded and colored out the 100 and 200 mils. And then we have the purple here, which is the differences, right, in power, etc. Okay. So what I ended up seeing and what ended up gaining some traction yesterday, maybe the day before, I guess to an extent as well, is we ended up seeing that people were posting some screenshots. And the screenshots that were posted that I ended up seeing were, oh, it's 6. Let me see here. What do we have? Where's my first one? Okay, yeah. So we ended up seeing this screenshot. Right, now this was posted in the memes channel. There's another one too, so we'll show you as well. But this kind of, I believe it was the screenshot by itself, right, that had really kind of, I don't know if I can raise that up a little bit more, but it kind of started, I guess, part of it. And there were some other things that were said too as well. But in short, let me just read you the screenshot, right? Now, again, whether this is true or not, this is what started and kind of sparked a pretty big conversation. So it says on here, right, which again, apparently we don't know who this is. We don't know if the top person, we don't know who that is either, right? It's just the top message says, happy to ally NTS. The response here is, can really thank Mark for this. Dark wanted to bring NTS into a 4v2 against Echo and 25, but he refused. They would make it boring, shiitake KvK, and had no choice to join Echo and 25 due to the fact that EIS WB Rage made a union to beat Echo. Now, it has been alluded to from some people that have also stated that those three may have said that, and there was a screenshot going on. I was actually trying to find it, and if someone has it, you're more than welcome to send it to me as well. I was trying to look for it, where someone had stated that there was, or may have been, in short, an agreement between the three alliances prior, like weeks ago. Now, that was a screenshot that was out there. I think someone had said that Dark might have been the one to write that, and someone had mentioned it to me. Like I said, I was trying to look for it, but I couldn't find it again. But again, if you have that, I'm happy to take a look at it. Now, again, maybe it wasn't Dark, and it might have been something else. It might have also, the context could have also just been, I think it's important to kind of read messages before and afterwards, right? So that's why I'm giving some clarity here, is that it could have just been said in kind of a funny moment, right? We don't necessarily kind of know what was said before or after, what that portion of the conversation was. So that is important to put into perspective. And then the next screenshot, I think, is, tells a little bit more of a story. But again, right? Is this accurate? Is it not accurate? Right? Is it real? Is it fake? But on one side, you have, okay, the reality, right, that someone's posting here, of stating that, right, we can see here from 176. Now, obviously, it doesn't have the name there. And I want to be clear, I'm a little bit more of a fan if this, because this says 176. So that my idea is that this probably was posted in Kingdom Chat. And if that's the case, right, or maybe the prep chat, right, because usually it would only say, well, I shouldn't say only, but usually you'll see the numbers of other kingdoms in the KvK chat or in the prep chat, right, because it'll show you kind of where those people are from. For me, right, so like for me, I look at this and I say, okay, well, why didn't they just take a screenshot of the Kingdom chat and then just highlight, right? Because that way, to me, it lends a little more accuracy, right? Where now you're not thinking to yourself, okay, well, why is all this blurred out? Does it really matter Well, first off, I understand because it's a meme, right? And they don't want the names to be disclosed on the meme. So maybe there is a solo image, right, of it, of it somewhere else. That very much, that very much could be the case. But again, like for me, I guess that's just something generally, I would have liked to see. It's kind of more full. But anyways, right, I digress. It says, right, we wanted NTS Rage WB EIS versus Echo 225, right, with hopes Echo went free for all. So a 4v1v1 realistically, right? The right side says, right, we thought about taking NTS for the 4v2, but we decided to go the balance route, right? And again, this is supposedly from Dark, I would imagine, right? And this is the meme, right? Reality versus someone who creates his own reality. Like I said, we don't know necessarily what was said and what was not said. This is just kind of what was floating around. But again, my point is that when these things were posted, right, it started sparking a lot of conversation, a lot of debate on, well, okay, because this thing, anytime you see and you hear things like this, right, people will immediately go to people's pasts and they'll look at past KvKs and you look at the matchups and, how did that, what was that team formed or who ended up unioning and working with who and how did their team stack up against the other team and then how did that KvK play out? And, you can definitely kind of run into a rabbit hole at that point. Okay, so we get to this situation of like, this is where we're at right at the moment, okay? So then I end up, if I can go back to my KvK screen here, I end up, again, reaching out to both parties because I thought to myself, okay, well, I going off a screenshot or a meme or something like that, right, with not necessarily any context doesn't really do it for me, right? Sure, why not? We want to talk about how this starts a conversation. That's fine. But I figured, okay, let me go to the source, which kind of gets me into my next part. So, right, I again wanted to reach out to both parties involved, and initially I had reached out to Dark and Mark pretty much around the same time. I think it was probably yesterday, 2 days ago, and I said, okay, well, let me ask them and just see what's going on, right? So, let me start with Dark and then we'll get to Mark's response from NTS, right? So I reached out to Dark and I had asked 2 questions. And my first one was basically, hey, look, man, this screenshot's floating around. It's obviously being stated that there was a 4v2 situation, right? Did this happen, right? And then I think the second part was like, what were some of the reasons behind, right? If that was proposed, that might have been a factor for that. Dark responds and says that there was no offer and no mention of a 4v2 at all, and that it's basically fake. Right? There's nothing true about the offer. Right? That was the short version of what I was told. Right, there was some more in there, but again, I didn't ask him if I could quote anything, right? So that's why I'm kind of giving you the clip note version here, and that's why I'm not showing any screens at the moment, right? And there was more that was said, but the short version is that, right? He unequivocally denies it. There was never any mention. There wasn't an option. There was never a direct ask of saying, or any inclusion of saying, hey, NTS needs to be here for the 4v2, right? And Dark's hanging out in chat as well, right? So I'm sure he can reiterate or make any corrections if needed. But that was what I was told. Then I go over and I ask Mark. Now, some of you may know, right? And again, just a very brief history lesson here, right? So most of you know Ma, and the OGs know the response that I usually get from Ma, right? And it's been that way for God knows how long, right? Where and keep in mind, a lot of this started because, for those of you that remember, when NTS had the whole cheating allegations, the botting allegations, right? That was a very big thing, right? About a year ago, a little over that. And a number of us were covering it. And I kind of did this 3-part series on it. And at the time, Ma, the R5, right? Because then he left and he just recently came back, which is great to see him back as well. But at the time, the way I had covered it, right, and to be clear, never said that they cheated, never said that there was any indication of them cheating, right? I covered it objectively from both sides. But part of it, Ma and maybe some of the people from NTS probably just didn't like. And so for forever, until a while ago, the response I would always get from Ma was just a giant FU. And I would show that as well. Like I would write it on the response so people could see. Every time I'd ask him a question, or if I was looking to get a comment on something, even if it wasn't even related, right, directly to them, or there could have been any negative way, I always just got like, all right, just a giant FU, right? But he wrote it in a different language, so I'd have to convert it. But every time I did, it would just say FU. It was like a little surprise pop-up. And so then we move past that, and again, I've always had good relationships with Mark, right? I had so much, and I even talked about this as well. Right, one of my first massive introductions to Mark is when I participated in that international global event, right, where it was like the global peeps versus, I think it was Japan or Korea, just somewhere, right, somewhere else, right? It was like one region versus the global regions, and that for me was my first introduction to Mark. And I just want to say, and I've said this before, but I've only had a good relationship with Mark from NTS, especially after he took over when Ma had stepped aside for a bit. Like I said, Ma had recently just came back a little while ago. But Mark did such a great job planning and prepping everything and helping everyone out, and helped me out a lot too as well, among others. When we did that event, I had a blast. So, then you fast forward a little bit, and I finally get back on good terms with Ma, which is probably thanks to Mark as well. And now, I feel like I'm kind of have a good relationship overall with NTS. And I had even talked to Ma a little bit in VC, and Mark was translating for us. This is months ago. But anyways, we get to where we're at now. So I go and I ask Mark, right? And the whole point of me telling you guys that is because for me, it was like a big overcoming moment of just kind of getting over that hurdle, even though there was never any ill intent towards NTS. But it's just kind of nice to be on good terms, right? Generally speaking. So I go and I ask Mark, and I say, okay, Mark, what happened here, right? Because, people are saying stuff, but again, I want to go to the source, right? I want a primary source to tell me what happened. So I asked Mark, and I say, okay, Mark, was NTS offered? Was there any mention at all of NTS being included in any kind of 4v2 situation? Right now, keep in mind, I haven't asked Mark for any screenshots. I didn't ask Dark for any screenshots or anything like that, right, to kind of show the Diplo conversation. Again, that might be needed after you hear what I'm about to say. But I asked Mark, and I say, okay, did this happen, right? And I showed him the screenshot too as well, right? Was that first one? I think it was, which one was it? This one, right here, I'll show you. So I show Mark this one. And I might have shown him a second one, but I know I at least showed him this one. I said, okay, like this is what was said. Is there any truth to this? Or is this just, some fake news? Mark tells me that, yes, there was a mention of it, and that the offer was there for EIS to work with NTS and have them join WB and Rage, but that it was not the only offer. So that's what Mark told me. And again, I'm sure if I asked Mark if he's okay with me sharing the screenshots, I don't think he would have a problem with that. But this is what I was told. It's important to note here, right? And keep in mind, this is why I think it's important to cover both sides. Right? Dark says one thing, Mark says a different thing. The only way, I think to really kind of showcase that is you'd have to see what the diplomacy chat was like and probably get a screenshot of that right top down as an example. But Mark says, right, and it's important here, Mark didn't say that was the only offer. He didn't say like, oh yeah, Dark or someone from Rage or WB said like, yeah, let's just do the 4v2. He said that it was one option among others that was mentioned, right? Hence, there was at least two or more options that were thrown out, and this was one of them. And then obviously the important one here is, and I want to be clear, man, I've had good relationships with both people, with Dark and Mark, right? None of them, to my knowledge, have ever lied or have ever said anything misleading to me or have ever, you know, gave me some fake stuff going around. So I'll just say this, I'm torn a little bit, right? Because again, on one hand, it's like, well, this person hasn't said anything bad to me and they haven't lied at all. And they've only been upfront and truthful with me, but they say one thing. On the other side, right, this person has only been honest and the same with me and hasn't lied to me thus far, but they're saying something different. So again, right, again, I'm not leaning one way or the other, but that's my point, is that it feels like there's more, and that's what I'm trying to get at. It's not to say that I'm leaning wholeheartedly one side or wholeheartedly another side, but because I'm torn right now, it feels like we need a little bit more information, because you got one person saying something and another person saying something else. Now, Mark does speak English, but he also speaks another language as well. And I have mainly only spoken English with Mark, and I don't typically run into any translation problems. Like maybe if I'm using, you know, a conjunction or maybe like I don't know, maybe like a run-on sentence or something, right? Something that might be a little bit more detailed or like English specific or native. But for the most part, right, I've always had fine translation conversations with him, and he's usually talking to me in English. So maybe there could be a translation thing. Maybe there could have been a miscommunication. But my point is that I don't know. Though what I want to show you here, and this is something that I think is really important, is I want to show off this thing that was on, where is this thing here from Mark on the Discord. And I think this is really important to show. And I say this because, you know, I really appreciated Mark saying and putting this out there, as I would appreciate it from anyone saying this, right? Let me be very clear there, right? So let's do a from, and then I think it's Mark, but I gotta find his name now because I'm forgetting. Where is oh, hang on. Let's just do this. What he said something like NTS. Oh, oops, he's hang on. Let me not do that. Let's just search NTS and let me see if it comes up, because I know he said it a while ago and somebody quoted it as well, but I might have to just grab his name real quick because I think Mark came on and he. Oh, here we go. Yes, I just had to find. Oh wait, here we go. I found it. It was yesterday. Good. Whew. Okay, so I had to look for it for a sec. So this is what Mark says, and I want to say this, man. Like, NTS has gone through a lot. Like, let's be very real here, right? For those of you that know, and again, as always, if you guys are enjoying the stream, help us out. Throw us up, because it does help out a lot. Thank you. NTS, for those of you who may or may not know, if you've been around for a while, NTS has gone through a lot of shiitake. Let's just be real, right? They have had cheating allegations. They've had botting allegations, right? They even, Mark even confirmed with me that that members of the dev team went into their Discord because they were getting accused so voraciously by their opposition at the time in that KvK, where they joined their Discord just so they could have them run tests to verify that they weren't cheating. And from Mark's words, they passed out all the tests, right? It was found out at the end, and then we heard later in some report or something, right, that they had found, okay, there was no anything going on, right? Okay. So I just want to set some stage, right? Because I think it's important to understand like NTS's struggles coming in, and then you get this message from Mark, right? Which again gets glorifying reviews. So let's read Mark's response here, right? So Mark says, and I want to point out, Mark said this to me as well in DMs. Because he said this publicly, I can say he had said this to me as well privately. So Mark says, from the very beginning of this KvK, NTS has been clear about one thing. We want a balanced and exciting season with real fights. I mean, let's be real, homies, doesn't everyone, and homegirls out there. A 4v2 setup would have been the opposite. And I want to point this out, right? Mark isn't, in this post, he's not saying it did or it did not happen, even if some people maybe want to look at this and say, okay, well, why would Mark call that out, right? If it wasn't mentioned or if it wasn't stated. It's not as though, right, he's saying that, yeah, it was, right? This was just something that he said to me privately. Now, again, some of you might have just taken it as such, right, based on how the wording is. But I just want to be clear with what we're reading, right, is that it's not as though that was directly said, right? One-sided and without action. That's why we immediately said we would. Oh, never mind. He did say it in the next line. I apologize. I just needed to keep reading first. So never mind. I guess he does say it. Okay, that's fine. So Mark does say it. All right. I guess I didn't read that initial response because it looked like he had maybe copy-pasted that from what he said to me and then posted it here. So I never mind. Excuse me. He does say it. So why we immediately said we would not support such a scenario, and that now it is important here. Maybe Mark, like, let's give some benefit of the doubt. Maybe Mark just said, right, that maybe he just put it out there before anyone else said that maybe this could have been an option to consider. That very well could have happened. But again, he says, and I think some people may interpret this as, okay, well, it had to be put out there. Why would Mark say this, right? But again, there could be another side to it as well. And that if anyone tried to push it, we would instead side with the team of two. Okay. This was never about individual choices or personal wishes. It was about our alliance principles. After we made this position clear, the final 3v3 format was decided. Okay. So Mark's saying, like, look, we just put our foot down, right? Regardless if it was said or not, at least based on this post, right? We wanted to make sure that maybe they got ahead of it or maybe they were just behind it. Right? Add from me here and now, we are always for fun fights. This can be made only if balanced situation or when all are united against us. We can only ally for this with anyone and be the opponent against anyone. I never let my or others' personal wishes to influence alliance goal. And I think this is really important to take away. And for me, and I don't know how some of you feel, but I have so much respect for NTS. Because, and again, you'd have to show me a season, and again, I'm only speaking about NTS in this case, right? But you'd have to show me a season recently where like NTS just massively took or even consistently has taken, bad matchups or not, I shouldn't say bad matchups, but like, where they had just a heavy favorite and there was no way to get around it. My view and my vision of NTS, especially the last couple of seasons, has been they've always have tried to have balanced KvKs. And I feel like Mark has been pretty earnest in his words and carrying on from Ma. And like I said, Ma is back now. So I just want to say it's great to hear something like this from NTS where the lead comes out and is like, look, man, keep in mind, they could say whatever they want, right? It's not like Mark's the only R5 who can come out and say words and, make them sound pretty. But I think it's important just to kind of give some flowers here to Mark and NTS because it definitely feels as though they live by that. Like they don't really care about any drama. They don't care about what's going on out there. They don't care about what's being said for one alliance or from an alliance or to an alliance. It's just, dude, how do we get the most fair? How do we get the most balanced KvK for the good of the players? And I will always respect that at the highest level because to me, that is absolutely the most important approach, right, to doing it. But again, right, to probably fact check that fully, you'd have to go back and look at all the KvKs and then see. But I just want to say, like, it's nice to hear that, right? It's nice to hear those words. And obviously the follow-up is, of course, massively important at that point. Okay, right. So now we have this response, right? There are, from Mark, we had, obviously, some of the some of the memes were coming back out. I just want to say, man, like, I don't know who made this meme. Hang on, where is it real quick? There are some memes here. And then again, I want to go through the number one KvK2 as well. I want to look at like the zone 1, the zone 2 stuff. Right? So the zone 2, zone 3, right? So we can see here. Where's dude, there's so many good memes here. Let's just be real. Okay, that was that one. The abracadabra was good. I don't know if anyone saw this. That was funny. I love this one, dude. Listen, I don't know if you guys watch memes lately, but I will say this, man. Arise to me is absolutely goated, man. Like, he is a legend. And it's funny because I saw a meme that he posted, and then somebody sent me a screenshot from the BTX Discord saying something like, "Oh my God, look, it's Arise's first meme in history, not about BTX." And then you saw some of the replies from some of the BTX members were like, "You know what? It's actually a W meme." So just it's absolutely hilarious, so funny. Oh yeah, there was this one. That Resident post, right? You can't be zone 1 locked if your zone 1 is between 2. I mean, it's technically true, right? Like, it's not a lie. Yeah, the Workhorses one was absolutely hilarious. This is the one, the scam train, and then this is funny. The EIS Echo Rage would be Alibaba. Dude, it's just funny, man. Like, this is good stuff. Anyways, okay, let's get to the KvK. So let's talk about how this, and let me scoot this if I can over here to my left screen, just so I have something and I can kind of show off, right, how this might look. So let's break this down. Where's my thing? Okay, so let's do a little bit of a breakdown here, right, on the KvK. And then I do want to read some comments too as well. Also, we got 8 likes away from 30. You guys can do it. I believe in you. Thanks. So okay, so let's talk about this. Let me see if I can. Where's my? Do I have one? Pen. I don't. Let me see. Oh, here it is. Cool. Let me see if I can download this real quick. Yeah, dude, download for Windows. There we go. Okay, cool. So I'm probably gonna have to increase the size on this real quick because I do want to show you guys this, but I also want it to be a little more digestible for those of us. Let's do this. How big does that go? Does that still let me like go here? Okay, cool. It does. Nice. All right. This should work out a lot better. All right. So let's go into the KvK, or at least get there. And then let's talk about how the Zone 2 and the Zone 3s might play out, again, based on the numbers. Oh, cool, yeah, let me get my little Epic Pen thing ready. Forgot I had to re-download this thing. Just makes it a little bit easier if I want to do some drawings, basically. No, I don't want to start this on the login, obviously. Oh, I guess I'm just going to overwrite. Sure, why not? Okay. So for Zone 2s, right? And, oh, gosh, I just remembered too as well. Oh, man, I can't wait to talk about this thing. I just want to say this, man. There was a massive change in Rise of the Dragon that I had only recently became aware of. And I did not know that this was a thing until somebody had brought it to my attention. And it is, yeah, it's pretty bad. So yeah, that's basically where I'm at now with it. And so I'm going to talk about it, but the problem is that most people don't know about this recent change that happened. And yeah, so it's kind of rough. I'll just say that. I feel like part of me feels like when people find out, they're not going to be happy. Because to me, it absolutely for me, it made, and this is important to say, it made Rise of the Dragons to me the absolute best KvK storyline, and now it's just kind of one of the boys and girls. But again, we'll touch on that in a later one. Okay, so let's do. I think you guys should be able to see this. Let me just double check. I want to make sure this is viewable. So we're good here. Okay, cool. Can you guys see this? Shh. Okay, yes, awesome. Look at that, dude. We can draw. Look, we squigglies and just. Okay, good. Okay, we're good. Okay, we're getting a little bit too. It's getting a little serious. It's getting a little serial now. Okay, so let's start off with where we are, right? It's not all fun and games here. So let's go through and let's talk about the matchups, right? So let's look at how would do. But first off, let's define where everyone is. So, oops, hang on. Let's do it this way. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So we have basically a West versus East, right? So it's 49, 60, 225. So it is. Okay, bam, there you go. You got one side. Okay. And then on the other side, we got. Okay, bam. Right? Okay, so here you go. So it's a West versus East. Right? We got, we're 60. Right? So we got 60, right, is, oh gosh, I'm going to have to, I don't even want to draw this because honestly, I wish I could type on it, but if I try to write it like this, it's probably going to be god awful. So I'm just going to not attempt. You know what? Never mind. We'll do it here. Just, okay. Do not make fun of my chicken scratch, you damn haters. I mean, this is not bad. It's like a box, but I'll take it. All right, whatever. And it's 25. Hang on. Ooh, okay, not awful, but oh, not bad. Okay, I gotta breathe. Ooh, can't wait to. Oh, I just kind of screwed up that line there on the up. That's okay. 49. We got okay. Then a TS. Okay, this should not be difficult. Okay, that is okay. That's okay. Oh, it's like just developed arthritis in the back there. Okay, bam. I'm telling you, it's hard work, man. Hard work. And then 249. So WBA, right? Oh, okay. Okay, that's just okay. They'll be all right. They'll be all right. Okay, that's no bueno. Okay. Oh, look at that, dude. It's to be fair, the line is probably the best one out of everything. Oh, looks like an Addams Family A. 176 EIS. Okay. Hopefully you guys can still see this. Hopefully it's not too. I can't wait to read the comments. It's just like I was imagining. Here. Oh, okay. Is it a 5 or is it an S? You can make your mind up there. All right, and then Rage, which is wow, gotta be all the way down here too for that, huh? And then. Oh man, I have to do the small A, huh? Ooh, okay. Ooh, not ooh. All right, girl, damn. Stop now. Watch out. Oh no, I connected it. This is not cursive. Okay, bam. Now it looks like it looks like Roge. It's Roge. All right, this is where we're at. I wish it was better. Hopefully, it's not. Fierce like being way too animated. I Press is crazy. I gotta read. That was like, bruh. Was it that bad? After Joe Beans in his gay arc, what? You guys are running. I'm not your assistant. What? I've just said this is wild. Necros says close your eyes and listen to the stream. What? The red thing you can't even read. Oh god, dude, it's killing. It's so bad. Oh, hang on, let me. Oh my god, absolutely hilarious. Oh, hang on. Let me move my face. Okay, is that better? Let me do that. I'll probably still be kind of looking off to the side, but if that's a little bit better, then I'll take it. Oh wait, here, hang on. Let me move more. Is this okay? This is probably way better, huh? Because now you guys can see the NTS portion. Okay, good. Here we go. Yeah, you don't really see the lines or anything. Okay. No, man, you smoking some beers? What is it? Queeky says, what is happening? Oh gosh. I can't even read it. Yeah. Lunacy, what's that meant for Dark is better to win KvK or slaps happen. Praz's rip contrast colors, wibbly lines. Damn it. Okay. Anyways. Okay. Okay. It's out of your system now. Got it. All right. I know. I wish it could be a darker color. There's just not a lot of like color. Is the black? Maybe the black color is better here. Let me see here. Okay. Yeah. Maybe we can do that. Okay. Anyways, let me now. Oh, good. Okay, it's still there. I just wanted to do this one part. Sweet. All right. Squeeze me. Okay, so here we go. Right, so we got, keep in mind, with the zone 2s, you are only going to get, based on the matchup right now, which is not the matchup I proposed that I thought and would have liked to see. Okay. You're only going to get some zone 2 action here, right? Which is going to be between NTS and Rage. And then you're going to get some zone 2 action her, right? Which will be between Echo and WBA. Okay. So let's look at the numbers here for Echo WBA and then for NTS and Rage. Echo's numbers, right? If we, and let me see if we can put these up on this one, because I don't want to lose my squiggly squigs, but at the same time, if, you know what we'll do? Hang on, this is what we're going to do. Watch me work. Not watch me nay. Watch me work. All right, let's do this. And then I need to go to the left. We did it. Okay, cool. But let me like skadoosh myself. Is this, oh, it's okay. It's at the top. So I think we're all right here as that goes. So in this case, okay, let's look at how, right, if we, let me do a little mock here. So what if we did, let's dupe, and then we'll just call this one, we'll just say like matchup testing or something. And this way we can look at what the individual ones would look up per zone, right? Okay, so bam, we'll do tests. Okay. So just so it doesn't get ruined, basically, right? So we'll look at, what do we have? What do we got? Echo WBA. All right, so let's do this. And then there is going to be NTS Rage. Boom. Okay, so let's look at Echo WB right across the board. Right, how does this look for the zone 2? Because we already know EIS 25IL aren't basically going to be getting any action for the most part, right? I mean, maybe, yeah, basically not till final, essentially. So, okay. Echo WB, right? You got, what is that? 2 bill, 1.8 bill power difference. Okay. Merits are very close. You're off by 30 mil. PvP activity, again, favors WB, where you got 1.14% in their favor. If you're looking at merits, you got plus 11 here in favor of WB. You got plus 5 in favor of them on the 15 mils. You got plus 5 on 20 mils and then plus 2 at 25. I mean, very close, right? The numbers are not far off here. Okay. Now let's go to 80 mils, right? So you got, what is that? Plus 23 at 80 mils in favor of WB. You got plus 7 of 100 mils in favor. You have plus basically more than double. What is that? Plus 49 at 150 mils. You got exactly double here at plus 17 for 200 mils more. And then at the 200 and the 300, it kind of swings back a little bit more on the WB side. Now it's plus 6, right? So it's more than half on from Echo. And that's in favor of WB at 15 for the 250s. And then at 300, you got a plus 2, right? So what's that, a 33% increase there? But you got 8 for WB at 300 mil plus, right? Part of me feels like, obviously, the bigger swings and the bigger numbers here are going to be at the 150 and the 200 mil threshold, but there is still value at these ones as well, right? Having more. Now, if you're looking at like total power and you're kind of estimating that on, okay, maybe, you know, will that equate to, you know, total troops trained, right? Exactly, obviously minusing your building and research power, then, yeah, okay, maybe you say Echo has a little bit more. Now, keep in mind, to me, I feel like one of the important areas here is still going to be wait until Brink of War finishes, or at least stage 2, because we still need to wait to see how much is everyone going to power up. I don't think it's any question or stretch of the imagination that people consider Echo to be the #1 fighting kingdom and alliance in the game right now, right? And it's kind of trying to figure out, you know, who's like a pure second, and or right, who's going to maybe try and dethrone, right? Because they kind of have been that for the past number of seasons, right? Regardless of the reasons why or why not, that I'm sure some, you know, will bring up. But I don't think that that's kind of something that is debatable at the moment. And like we all know, when you're number one, and I think it also depends on how you play out being number one. But in a lot of cases, we've started, and I think often see people wanting to tear down. And tear down, I mean like defeat. Like they just want them to lose, right? Or they want to see them lose. And you don't usually see like the number one alliance without, and this is just from my historical experience on monitoring and having, an archive for the number one kingdoms and alliances at pretty much any given time, right? With the exception of maybe the past couple months, but being able to kind of see how they conduct themselves. And it always feels like there's at least one or two things that happen, whether it's like drama related to them kind of shooting themselves in the foot or kind of developing a rap for themselves. And then it kind of segues into this, okay, like we can't wait for them to not be number one anymore. Like I think you could say that about Noir. You could say that about TFS when they were number one before. And, those are probably the two longest stints of kingdoms and alliances in the game's history thus far. And it's, short 2-year history where those two alliances and those kingdoms respectively had the longest number one reigning stints in the game. And so maybe it could have also just been from, like fatigue of just always hearing about them, always seeing them kind of in those positions. Maybe that factored in a little bit. However, you have a situation now where, like I said, you're going to have Echo going up against WBA. Now, I saw someone post a while ago that they thought, okay, Echo, WBA, right, this is going to be WBA's hardest challenge. Some people are just giving it straight to Echo. And other people are saying, like, no, this is actually going to be a fight. What I will say is that based on the numbers, again, I would argue it is going to be a fight. Would I still give the edge out to Echo just out of pure respect for their fighting prowess and for what they have shown us the past number of seasons? Absolutely. I don't think that's a question. I don't even think that that's necessarily a hot take. I think you have to give respect where it's due on the fighting side until you're like proven otherwise, right? In that case. So, anyways, right. So for me, that's where I land on that one. Right. I'm curious what you guys think as well. Let me see here if we can. Let me. I would obviously love to know if you guys think it's going to be WBA or is it going to be Echo, right? That wins out the zone 2. So let's ask that. So who will win zone 2 between WBA versus Echo and number 1 KvK? Maybe it's not a Q&A. Oh, poll. There we go. Let's do that. Who will win zone 2 between Echo? Okay. You guys let me know. I just started the poll. Let me know what you think, right? Who's going to win between Echo and WBA? We'll let that run for a while. And then we'll mark that down on the sheet. Maybe we'll mark it down on the sheet or maybe do it next, but I'll probably at least mark it down on the sheet just so we have some feedback there. And as always, right, if you guys are enjoying the stream, help us out, throw us up, because it does help out a lot. We're only 3 away from 30. You guys can do it. I believe in you. But again, that's my take, right? That's how I view the matchup. Let me read some comments real quick, and then we can get to the Southern matchup, which will be NTS Rage. And then from there, we can talk about Zone 3 as well. Desperate, what's up, man? There will be no WB Echo Zone. What do you mean? No, it is. Yes, it is. Okay. Damn, Zero. Guy comes in hot, man. Who's the F voting for WB? Come on, guys. I mean, like I said, man, you know, I will say this, man, I've seen WB fight a couple times. I don't know if I had a chance to watch them last season particularly, but WB has always put up an effort, right? And they kind of remind me a little bit of WAO a bit. I think Captain's over there at WAO. And I still remember the fight that they put up against Echo when they were just on that total like Lord of the Rings Rohirrim Cav display that everyone remembers in Zone 2, that Northern Zone 2, which was just, dude, so fun to watch. Like that was a blast of a Zone 2. Absolutely. And, you know, but again, I kind of put them a little bit up there with like the WAO group and like, I mean, they're very respectable fighters. And I very much believe that they're going to put up a fight. I think they're going to put an effort in, absolutely. And, you know, again, maybe they'll, you know, push Echo more than they've been pushed before. For me, again, that's just how I feel based on history. And I think just kind of needing to show some respect to the #1 Kingdom and Alliance. But again, that doesn't mean that, you know, it doesn't mean that I don't think anyone necessarily could have a shot right at dethroning Echo. It just, again, are you going to have as much activity or more activity? Are you going to be as diligent? Are you going to be as prepared? Are you going to be on your game for the entire time that you're fighting? And are you going to make the least amount of mistakes when you're going up against them? So I think all of those things really matter. Echo kind of reminds me as like an upgraded NTS, because everyone really felt that way, and people still do about NTS. But what I mean is like in the beginning, when NTS really started gaining traction, for those of you that remember, back in some of their early KvKs, they were the ones who were known for doing things so consistently, so diligently, and in a very fine-tuned way. And they were so, like, their micro ball was like so on point. Like there were so many great moments that in those early KvKs, right, people kind of viewed NTS as like, dude, they're on another level. Like people thought that the coordination was so ridiculous that they had to be cheating. You know, like to me, that's the ultimate compliment. and then it came to be found out that they were cheating. So it's just, to me, it's awesome, right, to kind of see those kinds of things happening. Yeah, we'll go back to the right window. Let me skadoosh this over so you guys can still see this. Absolutely. Brad, what's up, man? WB got stronger, slower. That's a very good perk instead of inflating the huge mercs. Okay. Brad says, yeah, for real, NTS is the only alliance who have Echo, who gave Echo a very hard time. I mean, see, and that's the thing, right, is I almost wonder... I almost wonder, like, and that could also be a decent gauge, which is like which kingdoms, which alliances, you know, really gave Echo the hardest time in a 1v1. I think it's fair to put NTS in there. And the thing is, I wish I was able to watch a lot more. Like, I wish I had a lot more free time to like watch a lot more of the KvKs, like more specifically. Hang on, let me skadoosh my my D-cord over here. Because I think that actually is such a good point, is like how many cases, right, do we really recall of Echo in those situations, like really getting pushed? I'm sure some of you might know more than me, because again, like I said, I haven't had the shot to really watch as many of theirs, but I do think it's fair. So, Kat, what's up, man? Yo, welcome. Yeah. Yeah, and again, Pratt, if you're referring to, like I said, to that Zone 2 one where they fought, I could agree there. I could agree that WAO definitely pushed them. I don't know if they pushed them as much as NTS, but I definitely could put them up there and saying, like, I mean, they definitely gave them a run for their money. And, you know, like, they didn't just stop too as well, which I thought was, you know, really respectful. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me see where are we at right now with the votes. Wow. So yeah, we got, okay, so we're a little over 70 right now. We got 86% of the vote. We'll let this run a few more minutes, but we got 86% of the vote right now going Echo, 14% WBA. Get your votes in. I'm going to let it run a few more minutes. And then I will also, for those of you that do vote on this, I will also be adding in this voting percentage on the sheet. Now, we might do another one if we decide to stream later, but at least for now, I will be adding in these voting numbers, whatever the percentages finish off here in the next couple minutes. So if you haven't voted yet, get your vote in on who you think is going to win the Zone 2 out. And then we're going to cover the South Zone 2 between NTS and Rage. And I'll start the vote on that before we start going over some of the numbers as well. In the meantime, let me, hang on. Yeah, so someone had sent me this image, but let me see. I don't know. Do I, oh, hang on. Let me see real quick if I can get the thing up. One moment. Let me, where's all my images? Okay, here we go. Yeah. So let me, oh, sorry. The thing is still there, but it's okay. You guys know. But let me show this though, real quick, right? Because this was, even though there's all this stuff here, it's okay. We'll go back to it, right? And again, like I said, right, it's fair to show off multiple sides, right? So Tempe had said this was what, a couple days ago from the Echo perspective, which is that, right, Echo will be happy taking any combination you guys come up with for the KvK. Just let us know what the outcome will be. Now, some people, right, to be clear, some people have interpreted this, and I do think there's two ways to look at this. One person is interpreting this as, or some people, let me say, right, one side of interpreting this is, okay, any combination of team sizes, right? Meaning 1v1v1v1, right? 2v2v2v2, 1v2v1v2, 1v5, 2v4, 3v3, right? Okay. That's one side of interpreting it. The other side of interpreting it is Echo's happy taking any combination of a 3v3 matchup that you come up with, right? But it says, right, just let us know what the outcome will be. Okay, that's fair. Now, I will say, it would have been nice if Tempe clarified a little bit there. Now, maybe there was clarity later. This is only one screenshot, of course. Right, so maybe there was a little bit more at some other point of them saying, oh yeah, no, what we really meant was that we don't care. It could be anything from a 1v6 up to a 3v3, right? Or a 1v6 in either direction. But again, that's not stated here. So I just want to point out, I do think it's important, right, for clarity purposes, that we at least touch on it from both sides, just because it wasn't as specific as it could have been. So for me, now if you're asking me, how do I interpret it? I interpret this as like any combination if we're doing a 3v3. But not everyone's going to interpret that way. That's just how I look at it. Right now, maybe... but again, if you look at their past, and you could, if you want to like refer to their history and say like, look, they've taken non-3v3 matchups, absolutely. So, you know, again, you could use that and say, okay, well, maybe that is truly what they meant, and that could be the case as well. My point is like there wasn't enough, right, in the screenshot. But again, just wanted to show that off just to be fair. Where's my thing? Are we back in action? Yeah, we are. Okay, guys, one more minute on the poll. And then we're going to end it. We got 88 votes in right now, almost there at 90. It looks like, dude, a little bit more percentage swaying over here to WBA now. The Echo was at 86, now 83. Nuts. Also, 2 more likes until we're at 30. We're almost there. Thanks. All right, I'll give you guys one more minute. One more minute on the poll. If you're just joining us and you want to vote, there's a poll going on right now. We just hit 90 votes. Awesome. I'll give you one more minute to vote if you would like to, and then we'll end it. And I'm going to add this, like I said, I'm going to add the percentage numbers onto the sheet so we can see kind of what the betting odds there were for Zone 2. I'll need to make, I'm going to have to like update my sheet and do something for like Zone 2, Zone 3, and then Final, and then try and put some numbers in there so we can maybe refer to that and look at that going forward. That could actually be a really cool idea. Pratt says, if a person is playing this game for more than 5 to 6 months, they know that an unfair combination would make the top 1 KvK boring. This is like basic common sense. See, Brad's like, exactly. I mean, again, I understand that, right? Like, I'm not, again, that's where my mind goes, is that, you know, I view it as, okay, like, let's do this 3v3, but we don't care what combination. Like, we don't care who our teammates are. We don't care who our allies are, right? I wouldn't look at that initially and think to myself, okay, they mean let's just take a 1v5, right? But that's just me. But that's why, again, right, we're covering it from both sides. Yeah, DSR, you mean 1v5. There's only 6 teams. Yeah. Mush, what's up, man? It is, but people still do it, true? Yeah. Llama, what's up? What other 3v3 would be more fair then? So, Llama, I'll show you that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the vote now. So let's go ahead and end this poll. 99 votes. Okay. So there we are. Let me see. Where did we end? So we ended at 99 votes. Pretty awesome. We got 83% in favor of Echo, 16% in favor of WBA for the Zone 2. Neku, what's up, man? What up, what up, what up? Genesis, damn, no love for WB. Okay, but let's put this down now. So I gotta figure out how I'm gonna do this. Oh, you know what? Let me rename this to like Zone 2. There we go. Let's do matchups Zone 2. That's what we'll do. And then this will let me, I think, do kind of the thing that I wanted to do with this before. So let's see. I bet you I can add another column here. Yeah. Got it. Okay, we'll do this. Let's do win percentage or something like that. Let's just do percentage. That's what we'll do. So we'll do Echo. What was that? 83%, right? So we'll do 83%, and then we'll just give WBA 17 because that's the difference. If we want it to equal 100, again, we're just being fair. Yes, and we'll make this red colored. We'll do a little black behind. Okay, cool. So I got the percentage in. This is actually pretty cool. So I'm going to do this for the Zone 2s, and then we can talk about like what people think for them. This is nice. Maybe I'll end up doing, maybe this is what we'll do the second stream for if I get a chance later tonight, is we'll basically do KvK zone matchup predictions, and we'll let everyone vote on what they want. Okay, second one we're going to do now. I'm going to get this started early before Kat, what's up? I gotta go back to work. See you later. Have a good one. Clano, what's up, baby? Didn't take WB leadership to be this immature. Damn, bro. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. Let's do. Oh, damn, train conductor, my man. Choo choo chugga chugga. BN, the current word on the street is that there may not, I like how you bolded or capitalized the word may not be a Zone 2 Echo WB fight. If EIS get their way, they want WB to deny Echo the fight. Interesting. Okay. Is there any interesting? I mean, that obviously would be wild. Is there any evidence there to support that? If so, you are more than welcome to DM me anything. For example, if there's like a screenshot or something that someone said, if it's from like one of the leaderships, please feel free to let me know. Yeah. Yeah. But again, right, you can always DM me some stuff if you would like. What's this one? Ooh. Was just recently. Okay, cool. All right, let's do the second one. So we got NTS Rage. So okay, let's start the second vote here. Right. So who? Here we go, and then we'll go ahead and get into the numbers. And we'll do NTS and Rage. All right, poll's been started. Go ahead and cast your votes. Cast your votes. Do it. Okay, now let's look at some numbers real quick for how would this matchup look like between these kingdoms. So let me load up my sheet here, and then we will let's skadoosh it this way, and then we'll do a little lefty left, and skadoosh that over. Awesome. So if we did that, right, and you can see I got the numbers here. I'm going to mess around. I'll do some other stuff here too as well, where maybe I'll work in like maybe I'll do like some differentials between each of the groups or each of the matchups. Like that could maybe be a thing. So yeah, let me work some sexy magic here. But for now, this is the one we're going to look at. Right, so we'll do this. We'll go red. This will be where we'll put the percentage numbers for what you guys think. This is what we already have in here. So here's how it looks, right? I mean, this is pretty darn close, just based on power, right? You're looking at, what, 900 million? But it's less than a bill, right? Now, when we start looking at merits, you got about a 1.1, 1.05, 1.067 bill. That's in favor here of Rage. Again, PvP activity percentage, I mean, that's a decent gap when you look at pretty much 13 to 16.5. So, right, excuse me. There we go. So you're looking at, what is that, 3.54% more? Okay, now let's look at PvP performance, right, over the last season. This is a +3 here at amount of total players that achieved 10 million merits last season. Goes in favor of Rage. You look at 15 mil, that's a +57 in favor of Rage. You look at 20 mil, that's a +52. That's more than double at 20 million. And then you look at 25 mil. And okay, this is a, what is that, +24? So almost double at 25 mil. So I mean, again, you look at the amount of merits, you look at the percentage, you look at the differentials, like it adds up, right? At least on that line, on those lines. Then let's look at some power players. Okay, so here we got a +5 at 100 mil. You got +10, but that goes in favor of NTS. The +5 at 100 mil goes in favor of Rage. You have here at 150 mil, what is that, a +18? That's in favor of Rage. You got a +7 on 200 mil. That goes in favor of Rage. You got a +1 at 250, so but a lot closer. And at 300, you got a +1 that goes back in favor of NTS. Okay. To me, I think the biggest numbers here that stand out the most is going to be our 150 and our 200 mil category. The 100 is, again, only a +5, and you're only going to +10 at 80. But again, the wider gaps at the higher power levels to me are going to be, I believe, more impactful. So again, both of those two categories, you have Rage, right, pulling that out. Now, to me, again, we know that MA has come back to NTS. We're going to have to see how the numbers look again. And actually, when I think about this, maybe it's more appropriate, right? So maybe what we'll do is after we see how much everyone's powering up, and we get, because my plan is once everyone's powered up, I want to do some updated number pools so I can see what, okay, some of the differentials look like now. And then does that change anything, right? Because that could very well change how people would gauge certain matchups and who they think might win or not win. And it might just tell us a little bit more of a story as well on like how much powering up, you know, is every kingdom willing to do right ahead of this KvK, right, compared to previous KvKs. But I think when you look at the numbers, I feel like you got two sides of looking at this. One, it is clear that there are a few more advantages going on the Rage side. I think the one thing that NTS has going for them, absolutely, is that they've just always been known as a very consistent, high level, and diligent fighting force. And I think at this point, it's, okay, are you valuing that a little bit more than the numbers going in favor of Rage? And to me, I feel like that's going to be the difference maker. I will say this, right? I do think this is going to be a really good matchup because I think this is a lot closer than some people are giving it credit or might consider it to be. I do think that there are some clear number advantages on Rage, but to me, it's hard, man. Like, it's hard to look at NTS and getting the sense that they're having a little bit of renewed invigoration this season ahead of this upcoming KvK. That's just how I feel. And part of me thinks, okay, well, you know, part of me almost feels like, dude, NTS can fight with the best of them, right? So it is hard, because a part of me does kind of want to be like, all right, let me give the nod a little ahead to Rage here. But honestly, man, like, I really want to see if, you know, besides Echo, right, and NTS is fighting a straight up 1v1, you know, kind of at full force, right, are they going to get crushed? So to me, you know, I actually, and again, maybe it's just out of, you know, my melancholy or respect for NTS, but part of me wants to give it a little bit more to them on this one. Let me see what you guys are saying, though, because I am very curious to see what some of the homies and the homegirls think. Let me see. Let me see. Where's the? Oh my god, dude, the percentages for the votes here. Oh my gosh, we're 6 minutes. Okay, guys, there's only a couple more minutes left, so get your votes in, man. Right now on who you think's gonna win. Oh, wow, it's you guys are neck and neck. This is nuts. Right now, it's 52% Rage right now, 48% NTS on where we're going. Again, we're gonna let the vote run a few more minutes. So if you haven't voted yet, get your vote in. Who do you think is gonna win the Zone 2 out? And again, I will add that onto the sheet, right? So that's this sheet that I showed you guys here, right? I'll add that right here, so we kind of have that going in, and we can speak about that as the Zone 2s come up prior to the passes opening. And we can have a little bit more of, you know, some material, if you will, some ammunition to touch on as we continue. Okay, let me skadoosh back here, though, for us to do this one. Right, so you guys, we can get back and look at the matchups right now. Right? Okay, so based on percentages at the moment, where's my thing? Based on percentages, you guys think Echo is going to take the Zone 2. And then we'll fill this in appropriately, right? With my amazing artwork. I mean, come on, man. Could it get any better than that? Obviously. All right, nice. Okay, 3 more minutes on the poll. Right, 3 more minutes on the poll. And if you're just joining, like I said, I'm going to give my edge out. And I don't think, let me be clear. I don't think this is going to be, I'm not getting the sense that the NTS Rage matchup is going to be overwhelming on one side or the other. I don't know if I don't know if I could go as far as projecting that. Like, it's just going to be such a clear-cut demolishing, right, by one side or the other. But I do think it has the potential to be a pretty long-lasting fight. And that's what I'm excited to see. But even so, I will give a slight edge or a small nod to NTS. Right, if you're asking kind of where am I looking at for my vote. Okay, let me see. We got 2 more minutes on the votes, fam. Wow, we're even closer to being neck and neck. Now it's 51% Rage, 49% EIS. Or excuse me, NTS. The name sounds so familiar. Make sure you guys get your votes in, right? I'm gonna we'll leave it up for 1 or 2 more minutes, and wherever the votes end, I'm gonna write that percentage down on the sheet. Yeah. Also, we're at 32 likes, 8 more until we're at 40. You guys can do it. Thanks. Okay, NBP, what's up, man? It's good that NTS is being underestimated. The defeat will be even heavier for Rage. Damn, man. Jeez, shots fired. Vikingo, what's up? Hey, BN, can you believe that we are allies with I and are going to 2v4 together? Yeah, I know. I've been seeing that. Tiny's been ecstatic. Davos, what's up? No, I'm not an Echo. Luckily, I don't have to deal with these top KvKs, DIPLO-WINs, and dodging to bore your opponents. Mush, what's up, man? Skill versus bodies. Who wins? Silver Sword, what's up, man? I mean, which is it? Are NTS and Echo both winning Zone 2, or did EIS team DIPLO-WIN? Pick a story, guys. Y'all are never gonna. I mean, touche. I mean, keep in mind, right? This is the thing, and I think this is super important that people have to keep these things into context. Is that to me? And you know what? I'm probably gonna. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna give a hot take. Maybe on a solo video or maybe another stream. But what I'll briefly say here is that also 1 more minute on the poll. We got 84 votes. It is still neck and neck. 51% Rage, 49% NTS on the votes. Remember, wherever this ends, get your vote in now, because wherever it ends, I'm going to write it down on the sheet, and that's what we're going to use going forward for the remainder of the KvK. So if you haven't voted, get your vote in now on who you think is going to win that Zone 2. It's the southern one between NTS and Rage. We just got done showing the numbers. So again, get your vote in. But my thing on this, right, is that to your point on the comment there, Zero, is that in a lot of times you're needing to kind of see how the Zone 2s and the Zone 3s play out. That can influence either slightly or heavily, right? And in more cases than not, probably heavily, on how the final zone plays out. And so starting positions and who has access to what and the matchups next to each other, those can play a pretty big role, depending on the KvK storyline, of course. And for me, and then obviously things like, how do the August Zone chapters work and, timings and in between times between each zones. All of those I think really matter, and for me, I always really like to look at KvKs in a way where it's like a 3v3, right? Fam, I'm about to end the poll. So last 30-second warning, get your votes in. But for me, right, I like to look at things like that because to me, I view a KvK as all the kingdoms participating, all the players participating, and how can we get the most exciting, the most fulfilling, and the most enjoyable KvK from everyone that's in the KvK. And that's always how I like to look at it because I feel like no one should be limited or restricted in some way. This 3v3, and it feels like, on one side you got people saying it's a Diplo-WIN. On the other side, people are completely fine with the matchup. And then you look at something like this, and it's like, okay, well, who do you think is going to win the zone? And it's like, okay, it's kind of looking in a sense like, what happens? Because to be fair, what happens if Echo wins their zone against WBA, and what happens if NTS wins their zone against Rage, right? Then at that point, you're kind of stuck because basically at that point, then it's Echo can invade, right? And maybe we'll talk about that in a second. I don't want to get too far ahead, but you can kind of see where some of these things are going. Okay, so vote ended. We got 92 votes on that. Pretty awesome showing, fam. So appreciate that. NTS got 47% of the vote, and people think Rage is going to win this with 52%. To be fair, just to fill in so we get 100, we'll just give NTS 48 and say it's 52-48 because we did see that at one point. But let's put that in. So we'll give Rage the W here based on the community, based on community vote. No, I called it outside the line. Okay. So there we go. Abda, look at Abda coming in, man. Isn't EIS, isn't Rage fighting EIS in Zone 2? Look at this guy, man. Just starting stuff. Just out of nowhere, man. Just out of nowhere, shots fired. What's up, man? Okay, let me update this on the sheet real quick, right? So we got 52%. We'll do 48%. Okay, solid. So now we can look at Zone 3s, right? So if we get to Zone 3s, right, we would be at this point, right, again, this is if we're going based on this logic, right, which you guys voted for, we would be seeing action in this Zone 3, right, because there's a pass, right, because you have, right, remember in Rise of the Dragon, from what I checked, right, there isn't a cross Zone 3, so you can only get into the Zone 3s from the Zone 2s, right, through that pass once that opens. So you're going to have this Zone 3, right, which is going to get accessed here. And then you would have this Zone 3. And then that would get accessed here. Right, so bam, so there you go. So I think, it's not like all those Zone 3s are going to get action. The only way you could probably have that happen is if it was like every other, or maybe if it was like a 2-1-2-1 to an extent, or maybe even like a 2-2-2. Right, at that point, you probably could gets something. But at the moment, this is what it would be, right? Going into zone 3. Now, from here, right, because keep in mind, what's going to happen is you're going to get into the zone 3 first, and then the cross zone. So that means everyone is going to get into a zone 3. Everyone basically at this point. Oh, but I overread. Oh, okay, my bad, then, kid. My bad, JK. I got you. Okay. Okay, understood. Uh, okay. So zone 3s now, right? This is where we're also 3 more likes. We're at 40. You guys can do it. Let me see where we're at here in some of these. Okay, so today confirmed. Oh, dope. Very nice. Okay. So this is how, again, based on where we're voting, this is how it would look, right? So keep in mind, with Rise of the Dragon, everyone basically gets a free zone 3 until the cross zone 2 into zone 3 passes open, right? So it's not like War of the Last Snows or some of the other storylines where you have the cross zone 3 pass. In this case, there is no cross zone 3 pass. You have the pass going from zone 2 into zone 3. That is how you would access that. So in this case, the most that could happen, now keep in mind, maybe they could get pushed back. Part of that is it as well, right? So maybe Echo gets pushed back eventually in zone 2. Same thing with Rage, or maybe NTS in this scenario, right? Could push back Rage. But let's assume this is how it is going forward. That would mean that Echo would be able to invade WB. So like at this point, this is the funny thing to consider, right? Is based on this matchup, all you're doing is continuing the fight, right? So whoever you fought in zone 2, you're just continuing that fight into zone 3, but you're just getting round 2 of it. So it's not as though in this case, right, you probably really need to revote it, because based on how you're looking, it would be Echo would invade the zone 3 for WBA and they would win that. And if you still feel the same way about NTS and Rage, right, Rage would invade the NTS zone 3 and potentially win that. But then you get into the cross zone 2s, right? So, because keep in mind, those will open just like in Rise of the Dragon 2 seasons ago, before the final zone opens. So in this case, you could then have 25 IL, right? Granted, if they would most likely take this, if Rage invades, and then it would be 25 IL and NTS, right? Double attacking WBA, right? So it could be 25 IL attacking them from here, maybe NTS from this pass, maybe them putting pressure on zone 2, right? Then, okay, it's a 2v1 at that point. Right? So 25 IL still gets some action, but it just may not be until the cross zone 2 into zone 3, right? And then if you look at the Echo side, which is on the northern part, now EIS can join the fight, right? Because EIS would have to go here, right? So here, if I gave an example here, right? So EIS would basically have to go here, right? In the pass, here, and then they would come up here, right? Versus EIS, same thing, right? EIS in their case, right? They would basically come up here, they would come, boom, in the pass, they would come up here and support. Right? So that's how the zone 3 would potentially look like. Now, again, this is where you wonder, okay, well, if EIS and WBA are going to 2v1 Echo, okay. And then let's just assume, okay, they push them back in the 2v1. Let's assume 25 AL and NTS push back Rage, right? Okay, now at this point, everyone basically has a solid zone 3. Because even if you get pushed back, your allies can come in, you'd get some more zone 3 action. But if you assume that each of the 2 separate 2v1s will result in basically basically everyone securing their zone 3, right? So in this case, EIS assists WB, WB secures their zone 3, they push out Echo. Same thing here on the south side, where NTS and 25AL would push back Rage, right? If their zone 3 gets invaded and they control that, and then now NTS gets their zone 3 recaptured. And then at this point, everyone basically is singing Kumbaya, and they all have their Zone 3 access. So in that case, I'll say this, I would vote for that to happen, because then at least we get an opportunity of having all the kingdoms make it into the final zone. So you're asking me where my vote is, man, that's where my vote is on that happening. And I would love to see something like that play out. Yeah. Let me see though for you guys. I want to know, right? I want to know if there was a pure 3v3, and I'll put this on here as well, right? Who would win final zone between and let's see what you guys think, because I might actually use this too as well. Let me, oh, can I copy that? Oh, whatever. We'll rewrite it. And then we got Echo, 25IL, and NTS. Okay, there you go. So there's a final zone poll, right? So if we are, let's just say this, if we are lucky enough, if we are fortunate enough to see all the kingdoms make it to the final zone, which again, to me, that's the most important. That's what I want to see. And if they do make it there, who do you think is going to win? If we get just a straight up 3v3, pure massive war, battle royale style, like you bring your friends, I'll bring my friends, and let's just battle it out on the blacktop. Who do you think is going to win? Cast your vote. We're going to let that run about 10 minutes. Right. And I'm curious, aside from that, while we're letting that vote go, do you think this could play out any other way? Right. I mean, and this is aside from, because part of me feels like even if you do the opposite here, right? Even if, let's say, NTS wins the Zone 2, and then they're able to invade the Rage Zone 3, the same thing could happen. EIS could just come and assist. However, the tricky part here is what happens if Echo, like on either side, right? Because if it's a 1-1 split, then that's a little bit easier to be the attacker and then also defend and recapture and regain your territory like we just showed. But what happens if NTS wins or Rage and WBA win? Now I feel like it's probably a little more difficult, because now whether you're EIS or you're 25IL, you're the support. So you either have to split your forces or you have to commit to one side or the other and then try to help someone out first and then maybe try and get to someone else second. Now that could be interesting, right? Where, and so like if you play that out where, like, let's say the blue team does that, whether it's Echo NTS and they both capture the Zone 2s, and then let's say they're both able to invade the Zone 3s and take those from Rage and WBA. Now EIS has to decide, are we going to split or are we going to go and assist WBA or Rage first, right? Because it doesn't mean that, like, they won't help out the other person, but it's the same thing on the other side. What happens if WBA and Rage win their Zone 2s? To me, I feel like that's a little bit more harder of a challenge than if they do a 1-1 split, right? Like if Rage beats NTS, Echo beats WBA, and now you have one from each team that won a Zone 2, and then they both have one from each team that wins the Zone 3. That's a little bit easier to like regain, and then you're still kind of even. But what happens if you have one team that wins both the Zone 2s over the other, and then they end up going on to win both the Zone 3s on their opponent's side, and then the only open Zone 3 is EIS's Zone 3? How would that work, right? And it's the same on the opposite, right? How would it work if Echo and NTS lose their Zone 2s and Zone 3s? Now 25IL has to be the one to decide. So it is interesting to think about. Like, that's obviously a little bit more harder of a position to overcome than if you kind of took like, okay, well, one team won one and the other team won the other. Yeah. Kidding says part of WB Rage EIS ally agreement was that either WB or Rage will have a war in Zone 2 with EIS. So either WB Echo or Rage NTS won't happen. Interesting. Oh my God, is that for real? Damn, maybe I should reach out to Dark and ask him. Dude, if that's the case, that is so depressing. Like, again, I'm not saying that's like, god awful decision on either team, but just as a spectator, and I have to imagine as a fighter, wouldn't you rather be fighting your enemies than your allies in that case? I mean, again, that's if that's true, right? So you're basically saying that WB or Rage will have a war in Zone 2 with EIS. That's nuts. Really? Kenny, you said Dark said that on Princess's stream. Wow. That is, wow. Oh my gosh. I want to be honest, man. This is it's making me really wonder here on now. Okay, there are two ways to look at this. Yes, am I initially slightly flabbergasted at this? Now, do I think that's going to happen? Right. So okay, yeah. So let's play this out. Let's play this out. Okay, let's play this out. Let's say Dark. Okay, let me message Dark. Let me ask, because he'll tell me as well. Yeah, let me ask him if he's trolling or not, because he was very kind and very honest when he provided his runs. Hey, Dark. Let me see. Hey, Dark. Some noob just told me. Someone just said that part of the WBA Rage agreement was that in Zone 2, therefore potentially denying NTS Echo Zone 2 fights. They said you mentioned it on Princess's stream. Is that true, or any clarity in case maybe they misunderstood / misheard? Okay. Okay, I asked Dark. He'll okay. If he's on, if he's able to let me know before the stream ends, then I'll say what he said. But okay, but let's play out both cases, right? In this situation. So let's say that, and also 40 likes. That's awesome, fam. Next goal is 50. You guys can do it. Thanks. So let's say that's true, or sorry, yeah, let's say that's true. Let's say you're right, and Dark and WBA and Rage came to an agreement. And they said that, okay, well, if we're going to work together, we are going to fight against each other in the respective Zone 2. So, like, does that mean EIS is going to split and send 50% of their forces over to WBA Zone 2 and the other 50% over to Rage's Zone 2? Or are they going to fight one at a time? And then if they win against one, they'll fight against the other. Also, is it going to be a full fight? Right? Or is it just like, let's build to the middle and then we're going to fight over a tower and whoever wins that wins? You know what I mean? Like, to what extent of a fight is it going to be? That's also important to find out. Okay. And then obviously at the same time, it's like, you're not fighting against your allies. You're hurting yourselves. You're not weakening your allies, which means they're just going to be that much more stocked up. Sure, you're depriving them of PvP and that might make them antsy. I mean, do we think that that's necessarily going to give you some kind of advantage later on in Zone 3? Or even the final zone? I don't know. Against top kingdoms, part of me feels like that would be really hard to try and equate that to some like massive value gain or value add, right? By depriving them and hoping that because they're just so jittery and their withdrawals are so peaking right now that they're just going to mess up, right, once the fighting finally starts. Okay. But at the same time, I don't know. Part of me just feels like, why are you going to fight against yourselves at that point? And it feels like a waste of resources negatively in a sense that's going against your team and not for your team, right? Compared to if you're using those resources to make the other team also have to use resources. Okay. But then let's say that's not the case. And maybe there was a misunderstanding, or maybe there was something there that wasn't clarified, right? And they still opt to fight everything out normally as they do, okay, well, in that case, kind of no pain, no gain. But if they don't, then they basically have to wait until zone 3, right, to see any fights against their enemies at that point. And it could also mean them giving up free zone 2s. And that might just allow, in that case, if true, Echo and NTS to set themselves up even that much more, right, for the cross zone 2 into zone 3 passes. So, okay. Oh, hang on. Dark responded. Oops, let's do this miss. And there we go. Okay. Okay. So I reached out to Dark. I asked about it. Dark said that, in short, he is declining to comment based on thinking that I was pushing a narrative that went against EIS based on me summarizing what Mark told me from NTS about the 4v2 proposal. So, yeah. Yeah. That's the summary. Now, keep in mind, I've only had good relations with Dark, but apparently now the way he worded it makes it seem as though he thinks I'm against NTS and that I was making it seem like, against EIS and making it seem as though EIS is in the wrong. And anyone here who watched the stream for as long as you did, no, that's not the case. That's not true. I only covered both sides based on what was publicly said. And I'll state it again for the record. I never leaned into one side or the other. I only talked about each side and commented about each side fairly. And even stated at the end that we don't know what's the case. We heard one thing from one person and one thing from the other person. And that's all that's been stated so far. So, again, that's fine. Like we say, right? Nothing against Dark or anyone who doesn't want to comment, and that's okay. All I can do is reach out and ask. And I'm not going to share anything specifically, but again, just a summary of what was said. But yeah, I mean, like I said, man, I don't know, because as I also stated, we would have to see some kind of, I feel like I'd have to see a little bit more, right? And that's what we also said earlier as well, is that there's just not enough out there right now, right? We would need to see, a full screenshot of maybe the entire conversation. If there was at any point anything mentioned and or someone screen sharing the conversation, and I also said as well, right, maybe on the NTS side, maybe Mark misinterpreted, maybe he misheard, maybe he misunderstood what was being discussed or what was being talked about. Maybe his response was saying that more preemptively, as maybe nothing was mentioned, but he was like trying to get ahead of it, right? I mean, I felt like I asked Mark pretty clearly that, I felt like I asked him pretty clearly on, hey, was anything mentioned? But it just wasn't an option. And the response I got from Mark was like, yeah, but we didn't consider that, right? So, I mean, again, that's what he said. But again, Dark said that there was never an offer to be made. So for me, I don't believe one person or the other, right? That's just what was said. And that's all we can say. That's all we can comment on, right? There's no point in saying, oh, well, let's lean this way or not lean that way, or let's make it seem like we're out to get one side or the other. That's not really how we do things. Again, I like to ask both sides as I did and presented what I was told. Just because one side doesn't like what the other side said, I mean, what are we doing at that point? You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, I can't control what someone tells me or what they don't tell me, right? But what we can do is at least report on it fairly. And I think that's important, right? But again, if Mark hits me back and he's like, hey man, I'm sorry. Maybe it's like, oh, he's like, I'm the one who got confused. Okay, that's fine. Right? Then at least I can clarify that. And maybe that's what happened. And maybe it wasn't what happened. But like I said, I'd have to hear a little bit more from Mark or see something, right? If he, right, changes what he said. So, again, I can only go off of what I was told. So that's the important thing, right? Right, because it doesn't matter to me. Like, I'm not invested. You know what I mean? That's the great thing about my position, is that it doesn't matter to me. And most of you know this, right? It's one of the benefits. I'm not a part of any alliance. I'm not a part of any kingdom. I have no vested interest in whether a story is true or not. But I do think that it can be engaging, as it is, and as it has been shown to be, when there are hot topics or drama-related topics. But at the same time, I do think there is a level of responsibility to cover things from both sides. And we will always try to do that. And then if the community decides they want to lean on one side or the other, that's up to those individuals, right? But to me, let's be fair here. This is no different than, this is no different. Well, to be fair, this actually is different. I'll say that clearly. Like, this is very toned down versus what EIS, and let's be fair. I think it's fair to say that, right? What EIS, Princess, and Wahid did on their Yapcast, where they clearly made what could only be seen as, in at least the second half of the stream, I think that's fair to say, borderline accusation against Sod with the situation with the lights, without having enough information and enough context to make such a claim, while at the same time not also speaking to the other side before they said anything. That, I think, is very different than what we're doing here. And again, people can do whatever they want. You're always going to hear me say that, right? If, whomever it is, if they want to get on and they want to talk about a subject, they want to talk about a topic, regardless of the level of care or how much care, right, is put into that topic before they talk about something, that is their prerogative. They can do it however they want. However, in the court of public opinion, which I think is also fair to say as well, because you have to be fair on both sides, people will criticize, whether that's constructive or not. Hopefully it is constructive, and talk about, okay, well, how did this play out? Because like I said, when I read Sod's his reply and his announcement, you could make an argument that kind of pushes the needle a little bit, even if only a little bit, now where it doesn't visually appear as though it's like, okay, this is 100, like it is so overwhelmingly clear right? Because that's kind of how they made it sound. I think, and again, objectively speaking, that's what I took away from it, was the fingers were just pointing, man, just left and right, during that stream at CoD, and like how it was, oh man, it's like only this fault. And again, that's not to say that they came out and they were only using those words or only giving the impression there in the beginning of the stream. But again, later on in the stream, that was very much the impression it felt like. And that's just why I'm saying that it would have been different if you would have seen both sides covered and they also got a statement, because the information they took, it's like, and I'm going to talk about this as well in a follow-up, but there was a comment that somebody said on my video, and I thought it was so good. Like the comment, it was like, dude, a 9,000 IQ comment that somebody made when giving their assessment of the CoD versus Light situation, and it just made a lot of sense. And it didn't lean one way or the other. It just looked at it neutrally, right, for what it was. And again, I'd have to go and find it. But the comment was great, and I'll probably do something later. But where I'm trying to go with this is to say the one thing you don't want to have happen, and I think everyone can agree here, is you don't want something to come out when you make or you misquote or misinterpret or misunderstand, right, when someone is giving you information and you don't hear both sides, and then you lean into one side, and then later on it comes out that the side you leaned into was not the right side. And that's regardless if it wasn't the wrong side either, because that can be really bad, right? Like that can be super damaging. And that's my hope that doesn't come out from this, right? From the whole CoD Light situation, because that would be so bad if you had a situation like that and it comes out that, okay, well, dude, CoD really wasn't in the wrong here and the Lights weren't really in the wrong here either. But, but then, on one side you have someone who you have a group that was like really leaning into one person, right, being wrong versus anyone else. And that's what I'm trying to really kind of get at wholly, right? When we're kind of looking at the bigger picture, is that's why I just think it's fair to be able to kind of talk about things from both sides, right? And that's kind of really where I'm going with that. Yeah. So yeah. 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 Burgers, what's up, man? Burgers like I should start the stream. Yeah. Conductor, what's up? Darker's just really just throwing his toys out. The Rambian is consistently remain neutral and states facts objectively. I mean, listen, man, I people are gonna I don't fault anyone for for any reaction, right, they have or not. Again, I'm the thing is, man, if I'm if someone said something to me, right, and I comment on it, and keep in mind the only reason, and I stated this already, but the only reason I haven't shown off any of the DMs is just because I didn't ask, like I said, I didn't ask either side to show off anything specific from there, which is why, again, I'm only summarizing. But, again, I asked Mark, I can tell you 2 different ways. And here, I'll even read, and I'll read you my question, right? I'll read you the way I worded my questions to Mark, right? So, yeah, right. So it was, let me see here, right? So one of my questions was, right, good morning, Mark, just to be clear, right? Because he stated, where was this, right? Where is it? Dun, 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 dun. Oh, yeah. So there was, okay, right. Just to be clear, right? Did Dark ever present an offer to bring in NTS to a 4v2 versus Echo? And then I had asked another question here, which was, right, based on his answer, where is it? Sorry, yeah, sorry, was at a meeting. Yeah, so, yeah, so, and to be fair, he did give me permission to quote anything he did say, right? So he has, let me see here. Yeah, so then I had asked, okay, so it was just, oh wait, where is it? Yeah. So we have the first one, right, which is, okay, so Dark never asked, right? Then I had asked again, because he had told me, well, actually here, I guess he, let me see here. I guess I can read his answer. He's the one who said it was okay for me to share. So I guess I'll just read it, right? So Mark said, I asked him first, right? He says, okay, hi. So this is my first question. I said, just to be clear, right? Did Dark ever present an offer to bring an NTS to a 4v2 versus Echo? His response was, okay, I was just asked by Dark, right, what do I want and expect from this KvK? My answer for him was clear enough. Okay. So I interpret, keep in mind, I interpreted this as at that point, okay, so Dark didn't say anything, right? Like there wasn't anything that was mentioned. There wasn't any offer, right? That was my initial interpretation of it. So I wanted to clarify, excuse me. So then my next question to him is I said, okay, so Dark never asked NTS to join them to 4v2 against Echo or presented it as an option for NTS to consider. That is clear. Thank you. Right. And I ended it there. Right. It was done at that point. Nothing else was needed to be said because I was like, okay, he didn't say anything. But then Mark replied to me a little while later and he says, okay, in my message answer explanation, what NTS needs and wants, I mentioned a variant 4v2 as not honest and boring, so there was no need to ask me again or try to influence, right? We know each other for a long time. Dark knows my principles. Okay, fair enough. And then I said, okay, that is clear. So you're saying that an offer was made or presented to NTS by Dark and you declined or did not entertain the idea, right? Okay, so then his response at this point was, I can't name it as an offer. I was like, okay, I feel like we're getting a little clearer of a picture here. It doesn't seem like that's the case. Okay, so then I said, okay, so you're saying it was just mentioned then along with other options, though it was an option that I quoted or quotated, even if among others that was presented. Is that what you're saying? He said, okay, sorry, I was in a meeting. And then I had asked him again, right, which was later, I believe the next morning, because he said he was busy. And the answer, and then here's the answer I got. So I asked him the question again, right? Because I just wanted to be absolutely certain at this point. So I said, okay. So again, it was just mentioned then, along with other options, though it was an option, even if among other options that was presented. And I said, is that what you are saying to me? Right? That it was presented as an option, not the only option, but among other options. And then Mark says, it was just a part of discussion among other possibilities and wishes. Okay. So now I interpret that as it was brought up, right? And keep in mind, we didn't say, let's be very clear here. We didn't say that it was the only option or it was the only thing mentioned, right? We just said that it was brought up and it was mentioned, right? Whether that was as an option or not. So that was Mark's last message to me on it, was that it was just part of discussion among other possibilities and wishes. I interpret that as it was mentioned. Now, if it wasn't mentioned and Mark said that, okay, well, again, maybe that's why I said as well. Maybe there was some misinterpretation at some point, right? But yeah, the short version is that the conversation started off where he made it seem that there wasn't anything mentioned at all, regardless if it was in a discussion or as an option for a 4v2. And then the very last message I get from Mark is that him saying that it was part of a discussion amongst other possibilities and wishes. So, yeah, man. I mean, again, that's what I heard from Mark. And that's quoting what he said directly. But again, I'd have to ask him to show off the other stuff because he only said that I only asked him if I could quote it, not share anything from the DMs. But like I said, right, maybe Mark did something else at that point. Yeah. Whew. Zero, what's up, Mark? Mark could be playing work. I mean, not really. I wanted to read that out so people knew, and I wanted to be fair because initially Mark made it seem like, or was making it seem like there wasn't anything, but then ended it with, okay, there is something there. So again, there's nothing untrue and there's nothing false about anything I've said. In addition, let's also be very clear here. If we are comparing just on the notice of things like stream titles, right? Keep in mind that when Princess and Wahid had done their stream accusing Saad, there was no question mark that was put in their title. It was a statement, right, of the scamming. Meaning they felt deliberately that that is what it was. So again, in that case, like I said, on top of which, right, they covered one side of a situation, not both sides. The difference here is, one, we never made it seem like it was a direct, that it was a fact where it was the only side that we showed, and at the same time had put a question mark to ask the question. Not only, and I should say not for, because we came up with it, because it was already in discussion, right? So keep in mind, this was already out there in the public amongst the community. The situation with Princess and Wahid and the Saad accusations, that came out of nowhere. They emphatically started that. We didn't start anything. We're just talking about the topic that is already out there in the space from the community that put it there. And then touching on both sides based on the responses I got. And again, as I've stated before, right? Maybe Mark misinterpreted what he said, which is why I'm not leaning on one side or the other. And we're not out to make any kind of accusation at all against one side or the other. I'm just reading simply what I was told, right? Again, I'm not a mind reader, right? So I don't know if what Dark is telling me is the truth. I don't know if what Mark is telling me is the truth. But I did ask them on, hey, what are your thoughts on this situation? And is this true or not? And if I'm getting conflicting responses, I'll speak to that based on what I'm hearing. So, again, keep in mind, this isn't like I'm making this up. It's not like I didn't ask anyone and I'm just coming up with some answer on my own. I don't know who would do that. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But just because one side likes it or doesn't like what one side is saying, again, right, keep in mind, Mark could have easily just told me, look, man, Dark and EIS said, he responded to me multiple times. Mark could have said at any point, boss, EIS and Dark didn't say anything. I was the one who said something first because I just didn't want it to be brought up at all. Okay, done. And keep in mind, that's how it was that's what he was initially saying first. And he didn't have to say anything after that. He chose to clarify. So, and it would have just been done at that point. And then I probably still would have done the stream and I just would have talked about it from a community standpoint, right? On this is what the community thinks. I reached out to Dark. He said, no, this didn't happen. So unless somebody wants to show me something else to show or prove that it did happen, this is a fake story and it's fake news. And that would have been it right at that point. So yeah, it's, like I said, man, it's, for me, it's, like I said, I like talking about this stuff, but again, it always has to be done, I think, responsibly and fairly, right? Where we're not swaying one side of the street to the other side. That's never going to be our style. Yeah. No, Kolek, and I think that's fair. I think that absolutely could be one way of one interpretation of it, which again, I think that could be spot on, right? Which is, okay, right? Maybe Mark's interpretation of it is like, listen, it wasn't an offer, but it was brought up in discussion. And that's one of the things we said as well, right? And that's why I said in my first initial mention of what Mark said earlier in the stream, it was that Mark said that it was mentioned, it was discussed, not to say that it was only offered as an actual offer, but that it was discussed and he said it as an option, right? Now, in what breadth of discussion, that's clear. We don't know that part, right? Because we would have to see the screenshots from the Diplo, right? They can have discussions about everything. It doesn't mean they have to agree on it. And that's an important takeaway as well, right? They could have discussions on every single variation in their Diplo chat, and maybe no one even considered the 4v2. And that's true as well. It could have just been one of the things that was thrown out there. And obviously it's difficult in that sense because I don't know if 25IL was included in those conversations. We damn well know that Echo wasn't in there, but that wasn't because, I don't know if that's because, I should say this, I don't believe it's because they wanted to be there, right, based on their response and that message we showed from Tempe, right? They probably just didn't show up, right, and didn't maybe want to be a part of it, right, would be, I think, a safe bet. So if you go off of that, there probably would have only been 4 kingdoms in there, right, which would have been EIS, Rage, WBA, and NTS. So you're really only hearing, right, from the two sides. You have to see a little bit more. But I think that's a fair assessment, right, is that it very much just could have been a discussion of all the options put out there on the table. And it just so happened that, right, some people got wind of some screenshots, or whether, again, those were fake. And again, we keep in mind, we know, because Tiny did show us, which is, I'm going to be honest, very sad, very sad to see. Tiny did show us how easy it was to basically manipulate screenshots, right? Which, I mean, you know, you'd like to believe it's not, but it does suck in that sense, because it now kind of puts a little bit more of like a devil's advocate mindset into my head for almost everything now, because of like how quick and easy he showed me that it could be done, which does suck. But yeah, like I said, man, I have nothing but love for Dark, nothing but love for EIS, right? Again, if Dark is unhappy or mad because he thinks I'm portraying things in one way or another when I'm absolutely not, and that's never going to be my intent. It's not the way that I do things. Right. Whatever he wants to believe, that is fine. Right. I'm not gonna tell him how he should think or not think. But just know that's never going to be how I portray something. Yeah. Kolek says it's not contradictory. You can discuss all the options. Excuse me. You can discuss all the options and you only offer 3v3, but doesn't mean discussing other options they are being offered to. Absolutely. And again, it's exactly what we were saying. Right. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And that probably was, and again, that very well could have been what Mark was trying to say, right? It was like options were discussed. This was absolutely one of the options that was discussed. It was included in discussions, but nobody voted on it, right? As an example, that probably is the easiest way to really put it. Yeah. Yeah. Deliaga, thanks for the sub, man. I appreciate that. That means a lot. MVP says thinking about proposing them or talking about them can in some way become an offer, which comes down to the same thing, but we are not in their DMs today. It's a 3v3 and let's honor it. Yeah. No, I know. Again, absolutely. It's a 3v3. This is what they settled on. And again, it's not to say like it's, you know, I don't look at this KvK and I think to myself, man, this is like so bad. It's so imbalanced. It's so unfair. You know, I don't think I look at this compared, and let me be clear, I don't think I look at this compared to some other KvKs and think about, oh yeah, EIS is, you know, Diplo winning this, right? I think you can speak to that. There are some stat advantages in favor of EIS and the EIS team, but I don't think I would go as far as saying like it is overwhelming or it's such a huge advantage that you can really consider this. Like to me, when I think about a Diplo win is like, it's a guaranteed win no matter what. That's what I think about, right? If someone's telling me, hey, something's a Diplo win, it's a guaranteed win. I mean, there's just nothing, there's no way you're going to overcome it, right? And so I will say that I do think that's unfair when people speak about that and they say that against the EIS team, because I don't look at the numbers for this number one KvK and think that in any capacity. So I do think that is very unfair for people to be saying that it is a Diplo-win when it just factually isn't. But like I said, you can speak to the fact that there are some number advantages here, but I don't think it's fair or responsible to go that step further, because again, the data doesn't support that. Especially if we compared some other KvKs in the past where we can really speak to something like a Diplo-win. Like, I'll give you a good example. You look at the numbers at face value for Tiny's KvK with I and VKG, that absolutely. Right, that I think you can be like, dude, that looks like a Diplo-win. Now, keep in mind, that's what they came up with. So again, even using that language wouldn't be appropriate and wouldn't be fair. But I'm just saying, if you looked at the numbers visually, you could look at that and say, okay, well, that could be, right? Like that's so much more clear to that than this KvK is. I think absolutely. Right, but if you go and ask Tiny and VKG, they'll be like, yeah, it's a Diplo-win for us. I mean, it's just. But I mean, again, Tiny's pretty wild. So, we get it. DSR, what's up, man? DSR says 100% agree with the Diplo-win statement. Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair. I think you have to really, the problem, and again, you and other people might see this when you're out there and you're looking in Gen Chat, how many people just loosely use the word Diplo-win, like it's the way they say hi to a stranger. Or do a general greeting. It's nuts, right? Give me 1 second. I was going to open the door. Okay, we're back. Oh my gosh. All right. You guys got me for like a few more minutes. Yeah. Yeah. Whew. DSR says you should have quoted the full conversation from the beginning. Well, DSR, I think the important part here. Hey, sweetie. Keep in mind, right? When I initially quoted everything in the beginning, I quoted everything broadly, only based on what was said, right? So it was never said that this was an offer or the only offer, right? What we stated in the beginning was appropriate, which was that it was mentioned in discussion, right? And whether I said it may have been an offer or could have been an offer, all of that factually based on what we were told by Mark was correct. But that's why I was very careful in how I worded what I said, and on top of which, what I followed up with after I gave Mark's response. So again, me reading off what was said basically still ended up being the exact same thing that I said in the beginning. The only difference is that I just read Mark's response in whole and also gave a little bit more context in the beginning. Yeah. So, but again, some people will include and think that, because something was discussed, it could have been an offer. Some people will say, no, you actually had to present something for people to vote on for it to be an offer, right? Because there wasn't any specific verbiage that was stated, right? For me, I just covered my basis on stating what was said to me. But again, it is important to state that I didn't lean in to one side or the other, and I never made it out to seem like, even if it was an offer or not an offer in that case, right, that it would have been the only one, which mainly was due to it also being mentioned that it was brought up for discussion as an option. An option, some people could view that as an offer, but again, we might just kind of be getting into the semantics, if you will, at that point. I feel the takeaway is just, listen, man, right? Someone said that it wasn't brought up or discussed or presented as an offer, and someone else said that it was brought up and discussed and or presented as an offer, among others. And that's all, right? That was really said. But again, right, it doesn't mean that, like we've stated before, right, that it was that any of them were taken serious, or better yet, any of them were voted on, right? There's those things I think are really important. Like it would be completely different if we knew for a fact that something was voted on and at least one person, let's say, voted on the 4v2 situation, or even if just the 4v2 option was included in the voting options, that would be different, right? Compared to it just being discussed and or presented, right? So anyways, but yeah. Hey, sweetie. Yeah. What do you mean? Oh, hang on. Lord Almighty, my child here. Yeah. Oh yeah. Focus like people is just listing what they want to create a problem. Yeah. And again, you know, like I said, I think the other thing, and I know I mentioned this previously, is, you know, for me, this topic was already out there, right? It wasn't like I came up with this topic on my own. This was already something that was being discussed. Memes were already being made about it. So for me, it's, you know, just kind of talking about something that's already out there, but just trying to get a little bit more clarity if we can, and then just kind of playing it out on both sides. And like I said, we also had an opportunity to talk about the KvK as a whole, which we're showing you right now. And so I really appreciated that from people as far as, you know, on where they landed, right, for each side on the zones, and, you know, who they think is going to win. Again, I'll be sure to grab those as well. Dream says, Pulse says, Rage side will win. What's your prediction? I mean, you know, I think as the entire KvK, for, you know, if it's straight up a 3v3 on where do I land for it, I mean, right? I mean, you know, again, if we look at the numbers, and we showed this off before, you know, like I said, I don't think that this is, let me see if I can show this real quick, because then I'm going to have to skedaddle here in a moment. But right, if I'm looking at the numbers here on how everything looks for the top group, hang on, let me back up in case that's a little bit better. But yeah, like if I'm looking at everything here, on what side do I like if we get a full 3v3 in the FZ? You know, I think the numbers advantage obviously goes in favor of EIS. It's hard to discount the Echo team, but I do think if you look at them kind of taking what you'd consider to be, it's like 2-3-4 versus 1-5-6. I think it's not really as much as what I think Echo is going to do, because I think we know what Echo is going to bring. I think for me, if you're looking at the 3v3, it's more about what is NTS and 25IL going to bring, right? And we know we know NTS is basically going to bring about the same that Echo will, even if it's a little bit less. But then how does that third team play, right? So will 25IL be able to bring as much as maybe, or even close to, even if it is less than the number 4 team, right? Which if you say that's Rage, okay, so be it. Like, I think those are some of the more important questions to look at. I think for me, again, if I'm looking at things, I'll say this, I never want to discount Echo. And I always think that Echo is absolutely going to have a fighting chance. You know, I think numbers-wise for me, I like the EIS side a little bit more compared to the Echo side. Like if I'm looking at each team, if I'm going Echo versus anyone, I think until I see Echo get beat in a straight-up 1v1, like just, you know, like really beat, then okay. Like I'll give it up in that case. But if I'm looking at the other people that are involved, again, just at the numbers at the moment, I think I like the EIS side, even if it is just edging out, or even a little bit more if I kind of had to give my stance. So, yeah. Yeah. Well, Focus, you know what I mean for the group, right? They would be number 6 for the group. To be fair, yeah. Yeah. But anyways, let's go with where am I going now? Yeah, let me see that. All right, fam. Well, I have to skedaddle here, and I got to go pick up the kiddo. This is where we ended off based on everyone. Again, I'll put some of the percentages up too as well, so everyone can check those. I'll have those on the public sheet maybe after if we do another stream later and we end up covering all the KvK groups, because I do want to do predictions for all the groups. So we might do something like this where we get everyone from the community and kind of interact. But listen, man, I hope you guys enjoyed this stream and what we talked about. We had a couple different topics that we touched on today. And again, as always, right, trying to do things as objectively and fairly as we can. And, it's never going to be something where we want to lean in on one side or not, unless, evidence is overwhelming. And like I said, we haven't really seen any of that, especially in a while, across a number of situations and topics. I think that's fair. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, right, we might be back again later here in maybe a couple hours, possibly. And if we do stream again, we will be doing KvK predictions for everyone, and we'll do a lot of the zone votes, very similar to kind of what we did here for the number 1 KvK, and see what you guys think. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Kind of just a normal pop-up, or I guess an impromptu pop-up, since I'm usually streaming in the evenings. But nonetheless, again, I hope you guys enjoyed and enjoyed the conversation and the topics. And chat was great today, man. A lot of activity, so it's always nice to see. That's it for me. Hope you guys have a good rest of the morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you might be. And we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.